Perry, what's the name of your new book?
80/20 Sales and Marketing, the definitive guide to working less and making more.
Now, you've written the definitive books before on how to use Facebook and how to use Twitter and such. So, what are you presenting here that your followers don't already have a great deal of understanding for?
Well, the 80/20 book is the first thing I've written that anybody in sales, marketing, or owns a business could relate to. Not everybody's going to advertise on Google. Not everybody's going to advertise on Facebook. But 80/20 applies to everything. 80/20 says 80% of what you get comes from only 20% of what you do. And it's not just a business rule of thumb, it's a law of nature. It's true in just about every circumstance that you can imagine. Most people have no idea how extensive 80/20 is. And there's an 80/20 inside of every 80/20. You get rid of the insignificant 80% and you just look at the important 20%. 80/20 is still true. So that means two-thirds of what you do what you get comes from 5% of what you do. So I actually people will find this book to be very eye-opening on a bunch of levels. It goes way beyond Facebook or Google.
Okay. Is there a research connotation to what you just talked about?
Yes, and it is the fact that you can quantify 80/20 in um, almost, so if I have a graph in my book and it says, let's say that you read in the newspaper that Southwest Airlines is $15.7 billion company and they're number 167 on the Fortune 500. I show where you plug that number into a tool that comes with a book, and it will accurately predict the size of every other company in the Fortune 500 within plus or minus about 15 to 30%. And it will predict the size of the entire Fortune 500 to within about 20%. And that is because 80/20 isn't just like a business school rule of thumb. It's a law of nature that there is a pattern. And it's over and over and over again. And most people have never been educated to this pattern. So in research, everybody thinks about bell curves and averages. Well, average is almost never the interesting thing. What's interesting thing is who's making it happen. The interesting thing is if I had 100 students take a science test and they got an average of 77, the real question is how smart is the number one kid in that class and how smart is the number two kid in that class and how smart is the number three kid, because that's the ones that are going to become scientists and that's the ones that you're going to hire. Okay, so average is almost never what's important in any research or any statistical data.
Hmm. Okay. So, we're all aware of the 80/20 rule in traditional marketing and such. Are we basically talking about the same 20% in social media that we would be talking about off social media?
Well, it's always going to be true. So 80/20 says, 80% of the results come from 20%, but it also says that 64% of the results are going to come from 4%, and it also says that 50% of your results are going to come from 1%. So in Facebook advertising, 50% of the results are going to go to 1% of the advertisers. Now, the reason that I was so confident in saying that Facebook is going to triple in the next 2 years is I'm deep in the trenches and I've been here before. So I started advertising on Google um, uh, 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago, back when it was absolutely brand new. And nobody really understood it. And for about a year and a half, it was under the radar. Nobody really understood it. And then it went supernova because a few people started figuring out and affiliates started grabbing a hold of it. And I saw this happening 3 years before Google went public. And I had an inside row front seat to the whole thing. Okay. And I knew what was going on. In fact, I understood what was going on so well that I did not buy Google stock. Why didn't I buy Google stock? Because you could make far more money buying clicks and getting customers than you'd make buying Google stock. I don't want to double my money in 2 years. I want to double my money in 2 weeks. And that's what people were doing with Google advertising, okay? Because Google introduced a platform that really, really worked. It was a paradigm shifter. It was a category breaker, okay? So I saw this happen 10 years ago. I'm telling you, it's happening again because Facebook has finally gotten good enough. And I could go into the technical reasons why, but basically the really smart advertisers, the ones they are as meticulous about watching their marketing ROIs as day traders are. Well, when they do what they do, or basically, digital jockeys, people that sit behind a screen and watch the data happen, and know like they understand the beast from the inside out. And those people are getting phenomenal returns on advertising in Facebook, much more so than Google or Twitter or email marketing or banner ads. And it's because of the kind of targeting that Facebook now has that they didn't used to. So Facebook is absolutely going to grow like gangbusters in the next 2 years.
And the targeting you're talking about are specific tools that are now available that you can apply.
Yeah, so originally Facebook could only target based on people's likes and interests. So somebody's a Mick Jagger fan, or somebody likes Tom Cruise, or they read a certain book or whatever. Well, selling to people based on things like that, it's possible, but it really requires an extremely advanced marketer to figure out how to make it work. Now, what Facebook has is you can target people in certain incomes, in certain professions. You could target just dentists. You could target just people who buy motorcycle paraphernalia. And then you can combine it with other things. You could say, okay, I just want people who are into motorcycle stuff, who are between age 40 and 55, and who live in these kind of neighborhoods, or like their house is worth more than $150,000 or something like that. And now you can combine that with some of the other things, like, oh, they like Harley Davidson or something like that. Now all of a sudden you're getting extremely targeted advertising to the exact right people that you want. Now, there's another thing that's equally important. Facebook is the only company that's figured out how to make mobile phone advertising work. Okay, so Google is in the game, and all these banner ad companies are in the game, and DoubleClick is in the game. There's all kinds of people, but Facebook is the only company that can get away with filling your entire screen with an advertisement, because it's in your news feed, and usually it's like one of your friends is a fan of Pimsleur language learning, or like something like that, right? And it's actually reasonably relevant to some of their friends, and you see that, and you're like, yeah, I'll watch their little video, and you go click, and you actually turn into a customer. Facebook is the only company that's getting mobile to work that well. Okay, so you take those two things and you put them together, and the simple fact that I know lots of small in the trenches marketers are getting better ROI on Facebook than anywhere else. You have a formula for a company that's going to triple. Forrester has no idea what they are talking about, because they're talking to the wrong people. It's not because they're a bad research company. I imagine they're fine, but they don't know who knows, and I know, because they're my customers.
Does the advertising work as well B2B as it does B2C?
No, actually, I've got a site, isfbforme.com, which stands for Is Facebook for Me. And you can go to isfbforme.com, and you can answer 10 questions, and it will give you a score from 1 to 10 on how relevant Facebook advertising is to your business. If you get like less than a 6, Facebook's probably going to be, number 5 or 10 on your list. It's not going to be number 1. If you got a 9 or a 10, then Facebook should be right up close to the top. And B2B companies generally won't get a very high score. On the other hand, companies that sell to consumers, companies that sell escapism, entertainment, political stuff, religious stuff, experiences, travel. Those do great on Facebook.
Hmm. How far behind is Twitter? And do you anticipate, assuming they are behind Facebook,
Oh,
they're going
Twitter is years behind Facebook, and I don't see how they can get there from here. I don't. They just went public. I don't see any way that they're ever going to get like have control of their future. And maybe that'll change somehow or another. Maybe they'll invent something, but they're going to have to completely invent something that nobody sees right now before they're going to achieve what people want them to. I think it's a sleeper.
And I ask about that because it seems to me, from looking at the way we use Twitter, that it is both a consumer and a business,
Yeah.
proposition. And
Hmm.
I look at Facebook as being more of a consumer proposition.
Well, you're right, and Twitter's fine, and I use Twitter every day, but Twitter doesn't have a good way to monetize things. Now, if Twitter could get away with inserting advertisements into your Twitter feed and not have everybody go ballistic on them, then maybe that might be fine. And maybe I got to imagine they probably experimented with it, but I think they would get a lot of pushback. Facebook, it's like the frog in the kettle. Facebook has been able to slowly raise the temperature of that frog in the kettle and slowly introduce more and more advertising and get people to be accustomed to it. Now, if Twitter can do that, then great. They'll be in charge of their thing. But most people don't even use Twitter to read their tweets. They use all these other applications and they filter out the advertising. Now, I would love to be able to advertise on Twitter. I don't care where advertisements come. I want customers in my business. Millions of people want customers in their business. They don't really care where it's from. But some advertising platforms are way better than others.
Do you buy into the common wisdom that the actual number of Twitter users actually is way overdone by Twitter?
Well, it might be.
Does that concern you?
Well, I don't worry about that too much. You know what I worry about is the large number of Twitter users who they have like 2,000 followers and they follow them all back. Well, that means that they can't possibly be reading any of the stuff that's on their Twitter feed because it would take you all day just to read half of it. Okay. And so either they're just reading what gets replied back to them, so they're just in their little social media echo chamber, or, that's the real problem with Twitter, is it's everybody talking and nobody listening.
But Perry, the etiquette is you're supposed to follow back when somebody follows you on Twitter.
Well, yeah, that's a problem. Well, most people aren't worth listening to. Sorry, they're not. 80/20 rule. So like I've got 20,000 followers or something like that on Twitter, and I like follow back like 60. Yeah, I know that's rude, but I can't listen to all those conversations, and neither can most people. So that means most influencers are not listening to anybody. I think that's a problem for Twitter. How many people are really reading their Twitter feed?
The thing that frustrates us in our videos and trying to use Facebook and Twitter to build audience, day to day, is that you never can really know when the people that are following you are actually tuned in and watching. I mean, I don't spend more than a couple of times a day for maybe 5 minutes at a time looking to see what people are actually saying.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm typical or not.
Well, I know that on Twitter, the name of the game, if you're going to be a successful Twitter broadcaster, what you have to have is you have to be the first guy with all the news stories. Okay, because people use Twitter for news and they really legitimately do, and it can work great for B2B, but you have to be on top. So I'm not. I'm not interested. I am the last guy who's gonna like sit and watch every, little blip that happens on the stock market or in them. Like that's not what I'm about. Some people they're really great at like boom, 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 boom. They're on top of stuff. They want to know. Well, so that's the real secret of Twitter is the speed. And if you are that, then you will get a following and you'll get people that are, and you get a lot of stuff. It's a manual labor medium. Uh, so if people want to do manual labor, that's fine. But I don't think anybody has a real business until they have something where they can spend money on advertising, get customers at will, and make an ROI on it. That's what advertising is, and that's what a real business is. If you want a little speaking platform where you have to show up every single day, it's like teaching first grade. Great, but it's a job.
Hmm. So let me go back to Facebook for a minute. What is Facebook best used for when you get past somebody wanting to communicate to their friends what they're doing at any given moment and the advertising angle? What else is Facebook really best for?
Well, okay, so, well, it's great for understanding your customers at a much deeper level, and very few people use it that way. But like if you go out and you advertise and you promote and you get a bunch of fans, Facebook gives you really interesting information about what all your fans are into. It will give you a very clear idea what their political leanings are, what their religious leanings are, what TV shows they watch, what books they read, what music they listen to. All that is very, very useful.
And is that
And
is that collected by Facebook and presented to you in some way if you want it, or is it really
yeah,
just kind of
yeah,
scattered? You can.
yeah, and I don't remember the exact name of it, but there's a report in Facebook where it shows you what other things your fans follow, watch, look at, and listen to. And again, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the menu, but it's in there, and you can go in there and you can it's like, well, how many of my fans are fans of Barack Obama, and how many fans are fans of Lady Gaga? And you'll find that there's all these now, of course, those are like very large things out there, but you'll find other things. So, like for example, one of my websites, people people who liked that website also liked the Bible. Well, that's not unusual. They also liked the books Brave New World by Aldous Huxley and 1984 by George Orwell. And those two books made the top 5. Well, that's very peculiar. Okay? That means that people who like that website are very literate and they're into science fiction and they're interested in like that whole science fiction dystopia thing that
Mm-hmm.
both of those books are about. It tells you a lot about how they view the world. There's a certain amount of paranoia that they have in looking at things. That they have very far-ranging views about how the world works. That's just giving you like a really simple example. Facebook tells you stuff like that easier than any other place you can go. And so now, if you wanna write a blog post and talk about a movie, you know what kind of movie or which movie you should talk about, even a recent one. Wow, a lot of my people are suddenly interested, in the new movie about Steve Jobs. Okay, so I'm gonna write a blog post about Steve Jobs, and I'll get a lot of engagement from my audience on that. So that's kind of a more of an advanced thing.
But it sounds to me like you use the blog then to really dig into what it is that they are interested in,
Yeah,
because it
and
just
that's
seems
what
to me that
marketers do.
it seems to me that understanding that a lot of these people are interested in Steve Jobs doesn't really give you that much insight other than a big picture macro idea of something. But if you're going to use it for marketing or advertising purposes, you got to dig down to the micro, don't you?
Well, you've got to see like, well, what other books and what are other offers? Are they interested in Steve Jobs as a personality, or are they interested in technology and gadgets, like there's two different things that can mean, right? Well, if you look at the other things that are fans of, you'll know. Okay, if there's a bunch of other flamboyant personalities that they, are reading those books too or watching those movies, then okay, they're into flamboyant personalities. Probably needs you need to be a flamboyant personality. Or it might mean that they want to hear about all the latest gadgets and the latest technology and futurist stuff. It could mean either one of those things.
Perry, do you do any work with traditional market researchers who are trying to get a handle on what this is all about?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, we teach various kinds of market research in our courses and everything, and the bottom line is if you want to sell something, you have to enter the conversation inside your customer's head. Okay. And I don't care how you figure out what that conversation is, whether you looked at a bunch of data and reports and, and surveys and stuff, or if you went to a bar and in a hotel at a conference and you talked to a bunch of attendees over beers. I mean, I don't care how you get that information, but you have to really know what's making people lay awake at night, stare at the ceiling, get ulcers, what makes them angry, what makes them happy. You have to know that. And it's totally different for different people, right? So that is the name of the game. And social media is the fastest way to figure that stuff out.
Okay. Perry, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.